Morning. I know, this is not morning, but actually, there is a famous restaurant in Tel Aviv that every time you go there in the night, in the afternoon, in the night, whatever, they say you good morning. And you know what? Good morning is a fantastic thing to say when you want to start something. And we have a fantastic panel today to talk about the Agtech and FoodTech. And I do believe that we are at the start of a new era. 10,000 years ago, we began nearby Jerusalem. We began with, to do agriculture 10,000 years ago. Do you know how many people we were on Earth? 6 million. And they began agriculture because they wanted to plan the food chain. And we are now 7 billion, okay? So I would like to introduce a fantastic panel that we have today. And I would like to share with you all why the Agtech and FoodTech is the new tech around. So we do have with us Gil Meron from Yarden and Finister Ventures. We do have Nitsa, the CEO of Trendlines Labs. We do have another Gil Oshki from Mondelez. We do have Adi, a VC from AgriNation. And we do have Jens from Germany, an startups expert in the food industry. So please, I would like first to begin, with a small introduction of each one of you. Present what you are doing and why.
Hi everyone. I'm sorry I'm not very well. I hope my energy levels will survive until the end of the panel. Finister Ventures is an international US-based VC that focused on Agtech, and as one of the first VCs to decide that they want to do Agtech not just in the US but globally, they decided to try and invest in many relevant countries. Funnily enough, so far we've invested in the US and in Israel. And before working with Finister, I worked with the World Bank on technology and food security, and I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Nitsa Kardish. I'm the CEO of Trendlines Incubator Israel, responsible for all life sciences investment in Israel. We are the most active seed investors in Israel in life sciences. We focus in two areas, medical and Agtech. And actually, I think that we are the very early active people in creating the Agtech ecosystem in Israel since we started almost 7 years ago. We established a fund together with BioCrop Science, and I'm very happy to announce that 2 months ago, we established the first company with Bayer. On top of that, we invested in 17 companies until now since we started. We are focused on Agtech mainly.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gil Horsky. It's an honor being here with all the distinguished venture capitalists around me. I'm in the other side of the business. I make, market, and sell chocolate around the world. Working for the biggest chocolate company in the world called Mondelez International. We own brands that hopefully you all eat. Toblerone, Cadbury, Milka, Oreo, Tak, and Lou. And I'm responsible globally for our innovation on chocolate. So great to speak with you today about food innovation.
Chocolate for free in the end. Yay. Hi, my name is Adi Wagman. I'm founder and managing partner of AgriNation. We identified that in Israel there is a financing gap in round A, and this is our focus. We invest across the value chain from agri to food. And our main competitive advantage is that all our LPs are strategic ones that can leverage and give added value to the venture we invested in.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jens from Bavaria, Munich, and I am coaching, training, consulting startups, and this is the most important panel we do have in all this conference. Why are you sitting here? Because we are talking about, in my point of view, the area where's the biggest potential for entrepreneurs. It's food startups and food tech startups. I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for the first introduction, and let's dive into the subject of today. So I was sharing about the history of agriculture. We do face, and this is very, very clear for us, a growing demand, in quantity and in quality. And I wanted to, we are already 7 billion, should be 9 to 10 billion within 20 to 30 years. How the industry, how the startups are building the solutions to address this need. Please, we do have corporates, we do have investors. I would like just, to begin the discussion.
I mean, I'll speak on the corporate side. I think, big food companies have made a big shift in the last years, and I think they take a much bigger responsibility for not only thinking about the end product they bring for retail, but actually thinking about the entire food chain for various reasons. The first one, consumers are telling them, if you don't do it, we won't buy with you anymore. And for those of you who follow the news, Mars came with huge announcement yesterday on their sustainability targets. The second one is actually food manufacturers have a keen interest. If they are helping their suppliers and making sure there is more supply, they can manage costs better. And a real example for us is the biggest chocolate company in the world. A few years ago, there was a big shortage in cocoa, projected to happen in a few years. And actually, all the big food companies that are playing in chocolate partnered together and actually made programs investing in cocoa farmers that are in very specific countries, mainly in Africa, Indonesia, helping them to increase their yield to basically ensure there's not going to be cocoa shortage. And we made our own program. We called Cocoa Life. We invested $200 million. But a lot of our partners are doing this. And I think the industry has made a big jump in this. We're not there 100% where we need to be, but we're getting better. And I think part of it is taking the responsibility to ensuring there's enough material and ingredients of what we need to supply to the growing planet.
I would like to make remarks from the other side, not from more production, but the best solution to solve hunger is stop bringing so many people to the world. So let's start with that. Birth control is something very important. It's not, it's... Yeah, I am, and I do think that this is important. This is one remarks, but more than that, there is the issue of food waste, which is incredible. So again, before producing more, before investing so much in do more from less, because the less is a fact, we have to see what do we have now, and technology in that aspect can be really a game changer to really save more of the food that is, it's huge amount, more than 40-45% of food production is wasted. And on top of that, I believe that we won't be able to ignore the basic fact that the main crop should be increased by genetic modified. Nobody can ignore that fact. It won't be easy from the regulatory point of view, but it's a must.
I think that the food waste is important, but in order to increase the productivity, we're entering, and we just saw today, I think, John Deere acquiring Blue River Technology, which is a company that helps saving a lot of labor on farm. And we're getting into an era that we will be more efficient and more data-driven, and we probably will talk here about Amazon and Whole Foods in that aspect. But I think this is one aspect of how to solve the problem. The second, and I think that in a technology aspect, genome-modified must be part of the equation, but we need to hear the consumers. And I just returned for a meeting with one of the largest companies here, and they told me about genome editing, which is a less restricted area, that they are not willing to see and to embrace this technology because they don't know how the consumers will adapt it. So genome modified is much more highly regulated. I think we see the outcomes, but we still need to hear the consumers, and the answer will be somewhere in between. It's not just one answer.
In my point of view, there are certain things in that. This is a political thing and a social thing, of course, because birth control and controlled by the state is not possible in my view, but you can teach people, but it's not possible in a democracy. And on the other hand, the big challenge here, and on the other hand, the gene modification is everything is GMO-free at the moment in the US, but I'm sure there will be research on that topic. The big problem at the moment is that, for example, your company, Mondelez, is not investing enough in innovation. There's a big lack of innovations. Here in Nestle, Mondelez, everybody, Unilever is going down the drain at the moment. Kraft has its problem at the moment. So who is going to bring up the new innovations in food? So we need food startups who try to solve that problem, what you were talking about. How can we feed that people that are there in 2100, for example? There's an unstoppable hunger, for example, for meat, for proteins. Everybody knows we're talking about plant-based proteins. But you need that soil, you need to talk with this whole food environment. When we talk about Agtech, you need to talk with the farmers. You need to talk with the people around that. And that's what we have to do. And we have to tease these big companies maybe a little bit and build up a good startup area here. And that's why I'm seeing the biggest potential in food startups. And you should try to think, what are you eating every day, starting from the coffee in the morning till your dinner in the evening. Rethink what you eat and think about new ways of preparing that meal, eating, cooking with smart kitchen, everything, Amazon, Whole Foods deal in that, who's supplying the food, and then we can start that revolution. Because we need that revolution. We can't feed the people in many years because nobody from the big ones, I'm sorry to say so, Bill, but nobody is doing anything about that problem. Even Mars said we are inventing in climate change, yes. But we still will have that hurricanes. We have at the moment the big hurricane. Why that? Because there is climate change, and everything we do in food will affect every sector you are living in. I believe it's affecting the watering systems for the people. It's affecting hunger on Earth. How can we have that solutions for these problems? That's a big task. But I see this as a big opportunity for us.
I'll just add one more thing. I agree with what my colleagues here said. Across the value chain, efficiency can be improved. I will add that another thing that is bound to happen is a change in the diet. So we will eat more things that we didn't eat in the past, different nations. So if the average Chinese and the average Indian will eat as much resource-heavy foods such as meat and dairy, like we do in let's say 300 or 600 million who live in the developed world, then it will be impossible. So the change will be both shift in what we eat, but also eating new things, either technology or insects, more algae, but that's into the future.
I would like to continue this part because yesterday evening some of us were in a very, very nice meetup around FoodTech, and it was a meetup around the food behind the tech. So the startups were coming and were providing some to have the ability to taste the food. And I would like to understand, do you see that we need to shift to have actually to ignore the quality and the food itself? I mean, I'm a French-born entrepreneur, and for me, food is emotion. For me, food is love. And we heard about the quantity part of the food, but the demand grows also on the quality part of the food. So I would like to understand, how do you see this change of behaviors. I mean, if we speak about the change of behaviors and we hope that the others will do the change, but not, by ourselves, it will be very, very tough. Do you think that the Western countries, the rich country in the world, do you think that they are ready to shift and to change food, really?
I'm not sure that the Western country need to shift. This is the main problem. This is actually the main problem, because the catastrophe or the fear that we are speaking about on 2050, I don't think that it will really influence the rich countries. They will change from different reasons. I mean, there are a lot of vegan in upstate New York, North Tel Aviv, Seattle, etc. Yeah, but this is not the huge problem. So if they will change their diet, it will be from different reasons that the other countries or the other part of the world really had to deal with. But for sure, we won't be able to continue consuming as much meat and beef as we are consuming now, because the influence of growing that amount of meat on the earth, on the resources, is incredible. It's something unbelievable, and that will have to be changed. But the French people, I don't know, you are not an example, and maybe me as well not. The problem is much, much bigger, and it's not here, it's there. And I think that if we are taking responsibility on what to do with this field of Agtech, how to change our behavior, methodology, technology, in order to improve the quality of food, the quantity, because this is a huge problem, and do it in a sustainable way. This is something very heavy that takes from all of us everything we know, and we are ready to put in this issue. And it's from the level of the governments, of course, until the venture capitals, the entrepreneurs, the academia, all across the chain.
Okay.
I want to answer about the quality
yes,
of
please.
food.
Please.
For me, the question about the quality of food is complex, but actually it's quite an easy answer. 10, 20 years ago in the food industry, food manufacturers like the company I work for and our competitors, they dictated to consumers what they would eat. There would be 2 cereal companies, there would be 3 chocolate companies, and you can choose from them. And you had no choice, and you should choose one of the 3, and you could only buy them in the supermarket. That has changed, and today the consumer has the power to decide what is going to be on shelf. And if there's not what he or she wants on shelf, he's going to go and buy it directly through Amazon, somewhere else. And that's creating a big shift. So to your question, quality is going to go up. Not because necessarily all the companies want to take their quality up. They have a lot of cost pressures. It's going to go up because the consumer is demanding it. And if the manufacturers are not going to give it, the consumer is going to show them what it means. Great example, yogurt industry, the US. Turkish immigrant moves to upstate New York, goes and buys a failing factory from Kraft Foods. 10 years later, he's the biggest yogurt in the US. Chobani, he kicked ass. General Mills, Danone, all of them, sorry for the Danone guys, all of them is chasing his tail. I mean, I know some of the Danone guys are here, but it's true. And that happens industry after. Kind bars, all the different industries. Also happens in chocolate. So the manufacturers have to up their game. Otherwise, the consumer is going to vote, and it's going to be very painful. So that's happening in reality, and everybody understands. I think what we're seeing is the big guys are not moving as fast as they would want. They're still old, they have old processes, it takes them time, but the marketplace is forcing them to shift. So to answer the question, I'm certain quality is going to go up because that's what the consumer wants. But there is one big caveat. It can never come on the expense of taste. Consumers always say they want the healthiest food Every survey we ever do, and then we go back into their house, we open the cupboard, it's all full of junk food, and we ask them, why do you have junk food? You just told me you eat healthy food. And they tell you, yes, but I need something tasty. Consumers want, first and foremost, tasty food, then healthy. Every market research that I've seen in my life proved that.
So just from the ag point of view of the food, I think that quality today is translating in two other more ways. One is organic, not just the Whole Food and Amazon, but also in China, we see a lot of people, and there it's massive amount of people, willing, trying, wanting, consuming organic. And this is also going back to India and other places that you have huge population, but the upper scale are looking to get a better food, more nutrition, and where if we see in the West, slower trends taking in the East it's much faster, and they're consuming it. The second is that I think food, not just in terms of taste, will going to take one step up and to be like what we're talking about, functional food, not just to get the taste, but also the nutrition inside. And in Hebrew we have a saying, Yehu mezonotecha trufotecha, and this is what I think will be the future for our food. We will use food as part of our healthy consumption and how we treat our body.
The facts, keep the mic, Jens, because this is a question for you, and also I would like the other to participate. I'm very happy that Gil said that, big corporation needs to change, etc. We do have more or less 10 big, huge companies in the world in the food industry. And usually when we all know and we all, agree that we want disruptive innovation, and usually it comes from the startups. Jens, can you please tell me why open innovation does not work that much into this industry? How startups can engage with those 10, very, small quantity of companies, how they can do it?
Well, and I totally agree, to stick to the last point again, food has to taste well. You can invent everything, but even functional food that doesn't taste, it will not be bought by anybody. So you will ruin your startup in the very first moment. But you can be, first of all, you can be faster. You don't have that big processes and structure that you do have. You can be more exciting because you can do market research on your own. But it must be, you have at the end to do 3 steps. You have, first of all, listen again to the consumers, to your customers. Don't listen to Whole Foods, Carrefour, Edeka, Lidl, Aldi. Listen to the consumers, what the consumers want. Don't listen to too many trend studies. There are a lot of scouts, and Instagram is full of food pictures. That's the fancy stuff, that's nice. But listen to consumers, do consumer research, go to Anuga, to big fairs, go to ISM in Cologne for sweets, for example, in Germany. Listen what they tell you, what is really their demand, what is their need. Then look at the sales channels where you can sell that. Maybe it's online, maybe it's offline. Amazon is doing a big thing now in food. And then, of course, set your sales target on this demand from your customers. Because if you're not getting the point what is important today, if you're, for example, matcha tea, a green tea, it was trendy, but it's not trendy today, it was trendy weeks ago or a month ago, for example. This turmeric stuff, it was trendy, but it's not trendy, it's not tasted by too many people, for just 2 examples. This new yogurt did an excellent job, and Danone just forgot that trend, or they didn't listen enough to the consumers. So you have to listen up to the consumers and do testing even with kids. And there's one point in that I wanted to add. When you test with kids, what is the most important taste? It's sweetness. And we're in that sugar and reducing sugar debate. And that's another dilemma new products are in. If there's less sugar, they don't taste well. If there's too much sugar, you're in a dilemma. You have to be really take off. Yeah?
Okay, but again, into that direction, can you tell us how startups can disrupt this market? How they can work with those, big companies that will do the change?
Yeah, of course, they have to be brave. They have to do things that the big companies don't do. Because big companies like Ferrero as well, or Danone, or Nestle, or Kraft, they need more time. And you have to be very quick talk with retailers, go into the market, try and error. Don't be shy. Try it out. Try it. Invent something, talk to the whole environment, talk to the farmers, talk to the suppliers. Smart packaging, smart online presence, do social media, and then try it. Try it out. And be quicker than the others.
So of course the speed is important. I mean, we do have 3 investors into this panel, and of course, I mean, we all hear from the startups in the Agtech and FoodTech industry that they need time because the industry does not work quickly. So do you have the right vehicles today to actually support those startups, to have them, develop their solution and put this solution, onto the market or in front of the big industry? How do you support them?
To be honest, at Finisterre, we have not invested in a food brand. We believe in intrinsic technology in the companies. So we are heavy on the technology side, so we have not done such an investment. I will comment about the market structure, that the big food companies are being disrupted by the big retailers. The big food companies are trusted, just like here. If you were born and raised in Israel, you know Tnuva, you know Chocolate Shachar. But if you're an immigrant, you don't know these brands, but you do know the supermarket you go to, and you trust them. So they will certainly be a disrupting element. I will comment also on the first part of your question. You said that there is not a lot of open innovation in this industry. And I'm not as knowledgeable about the food tech, but I will certainly say that in Agtech, there is a lot of open innovation. I refer to open innovation as buying new technologies in. And you can see so many of the big players fund venture capital firms like Bayer and Agrium and PepsiCo, who are part of our LPs, and so many others. And I don't need to tell anyone that even if Bayer will make a 3x return on a $20 million check they wrote to us, it will not move the needle of their bottom line. So they are investing to get access to technology. So there is a lot of open innovation. On the flip side of it, their powder, their money to acquire these billion-dollar acquisitions is starting to run out. They're leveraging with all their M&As, and I think that in the Agtech, I'm sure also in the food tech, but I know about Agtech, that if there are no more exits in the form of floats or to large PE firms, then we are in trouble. We cannot just aim to sell our companies to Bayer, Monsanto, Dow, Syngenta. That's not going to work.
I will shorter the list, It's becoming much shorter because if the deal between Bayer and Monsanto will close, so the number of the player is much shorter. But maybe now when Dow and DuPont the deal is over, and maybe this one will close again. Maybe they will be ready to look at the companies that are around, and we will see more exit. This is, in my opinion, the biggest barrier in the Agtech field. We are active like 7 years. And it's about time to see something really that will make the investors ready to invest more and be much more enthusiastic about this field. Because there is a contradiction. From one side, it is so obvious that the need is there. It's obvious. On the other hand, this market is highly regulated, is slow, and we don't see the same active market as in the of course, not in the high tech, and not even in the medical and other fields. So if we want to have, in the coming 2 years, more exits and more activity that will encourage investors to step in, it will be difficult. But I agree totally with Gil regarding the innovation. We see around 215, sometimes more, technology a year, and we invest in 4 to 5 maximum. But we are very early stage, and for the next round, so what we have here, maybe 1 or 2 investors that they are for the A round. Again, people speak about labor cost. This is something that everybody knows that we have to reduce. We have 4 companies in robotics. This is the most challenging field to raise money for them, the second round. So there is a lot to do, and if we want to see really a tremendous change in the dynamic in this industry, we are in trouble.
I think that from our point of view, first, our investment strategy is to go for round A, and I think we share the same with Finisterre. It's to decrease the risk for investor and for the startup, because this is a very long cycle industry. Decisions are made based on the plant season. So we want to decrease this risk, and the round A strategy for us is part of how to add value for the venture and for our investors. The second is, although the consolidation process are giving us a lot of heavy on the exits, but we see second and third tiers players are moving in and trying to get more innovation, and it's just not just Monsanto. Everybody knows there is one Monsanto, but there are like 15 other seed companies. They are big, not big like Monsanto, but they want innovation. And third, I think the farmers, at least what we see in Russia, in China, and in other places in the world, they're starting to try to get the responsibility in their hand, testing technologies, investing in technologies, and we see more investment rounds that going like angels, family offices that sponsored by farmers, Australia, China, Russia, and then just the VCs. Because we have the long cycles, and we see more investors coming in. And I think for us, at least, our strategy that we took with RLPs to add value through strategic investor, this is the most important one, not just money, but to bring value from the real customers. So.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. I would like, keep the mic, Gil, please. I would like now to speak about Israel. We are here in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and of course, I mean, we are all aware of the fantastic startup ecosystem. Without entering into details, you know, I believe that with Agtech and FoodTech, we have more than 500 startups in Israel. And I would like to ask you, what makes or can make Israel a champion into the Agtech and FoodTech?
I'll talk about the FoodTech, and I think, again, talking part of the shifts we see in the industry, if you look historically in the past, innovation in the food industry was either flavor, was either packaging, or was either branding. Think about, again, go back to think about your breakfast cereals, things you eat every day, pastas. They've not changed in the last 20, 30 years fundamentally. What we're seeing now, the beginning of what people are starting to call food tech, we're seeing actually the last frontier of a mega giant industry that has not been disrupted by technology. And when I say technology, I don't mean selling it in the internet. I actually mean the fact that you can have cross-pollination, know-how coming from adjacent sciences in areas that so far have not entered the R&D pipeline of the food companies. So areas like genetics, biotech, pharma, big data, all these industries, 5 years ago, you would say the name of the industry in these industries in the food R&D department, and they'll roll your eyes as if you smoked pot, because they would not understand what it has to do with food. Today, actually, the biggest disruptions in food are coming from these industries. Now, for Israel, this is a perfect fit. Because Israelis are known to be agile. Israelis know how to smell the next territory. Let's face it, for any of the folks working here in biotech or pharma, it's a tough road, even tougher than food, longer years, more regulation, more R&D budget. As much as we're saying that food takes time, at the end of the day, you can get a food product 2 years in the market. If it's more complex, 3. So if you're an entrepreneur or a scientist coming from one of the adjacent sciences, such as biotech, pharma, etc., you're telling yourself, why the hell am I focused on that industry? Why am I not moving to food? And we're seeing that happening, obviously, in some of the hubs of Boston, San Francisco, the same Tel Aviv, Singapore. And that's clear that this shift is going to continue. You're going to see the next food innovations coming from these adjacent categories. And let's face it, Israel is probably one of the best hubs. And I would encourage people to do that shift. And I'll just say one final word about this is the criteria for big food companies, if they want to enter, let's say our company, if we decide to enter a new big innovation globally, we have a set of thresholds. One of the thresholds is, can this be a $200 million business in 3 years globally? Some of our competitors have a threshold of 100 million. Now tell me, if you're an entrepreneur in the room and you have an idea that is worth $98 million and none of the big guys want to touch it, wouldn't you go on it? That means every idea that is smaller than $100 million, the big guys on a global scale don't have an interest in. That's a huge space for entrepreneurs to go on, and I think you're seeing that happening in a lot of countries. Actually, there's a white space because the big guys don't want to go against these smaller ideas that are not really small.
I think we have all the ingredients. Startup nation, we're very strong in IT, in life science, in everything. On the other side, at least in agriculture, everything that was built here was built out of necessity and constant novelty. So these two, what make the foundation for a very strong innovation to go on and on. But in order to be a champion, I think that we have here, and we see more and more great entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, tapping into this opportunity because they're understanding how big is this challenge, but they need to think bigger. They need to think like Mondelez, they need to think like Monsanto, they need to take their idea for more disruptive and more bigger industries. Otherwise, it will be a nice idea, a $20, $50 million company, and not big enough to catch our attention or his attention. And if we want to be champions, we want to build here companies and not just to exit some as high tech, but in agriculture, since we're early, but we have all the understanding from the high tech, we need to run faster.
I remember Adi, one sec. I remember Adi when we talk before the panel, you also specified about the geography of Israel. I mean, the specificity of this country to be a fantastic laboratory. Can you please elaborate
Yeah, I
on
share
that?
with Yossi that Israel enjoyed 7 different geographic areas, and we actually can test various crops and various conditions inside in Israel and to use it as a beta site for almost all over the world. For example, one of our companies got a clearance in California because it's the same as in Israel for their regulation. So it can be an added value and to shorten time to market and in terms of regulation and other processes. So I think Israel is the best.
Okay, thank you.
I can't agree more about Israel is the best. I just want to remind that the traditional agriculture for many years in Israel is something that is really the platform of everything that that people are doing now. We can't forget the technology that came from a very close industry like water, technology in water, irrigation, of course, the seed industry that is a legend in Israel. And we have just, to continue in that same commitment, the same passion, and bring more and more of that. No other way. And it will be as successful as other industry in Israel.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Nitsa.
As I mentioned in the beginning, Finisterre has a mandate to invest in many countries, in Australia, New Zealand, in Europe, and so far we've done 2 deals in Israel and the rest, that's the other 6 deals in the US, which means something. It means about the depth and the quality of the deal flow. And part of the reason, and I really believe in this story, it's a story of cross-pollination. So you mentioned the people from the biopharma industry that want to enter the food industry. And of course, if you're a biopharma professional from Eli Lilly in New Jersey, then you're probably better than the average person in Teva. And if you're a plant sciences professional from UC Davis in California, then you're probably as good or better than the average person from Rehovot. But in the US, these two would never meet. They would never consider entering the other space. And in Israel, they meet probably their cousins. And that's part of the strength, and that's what we see here in a lot of the companies.
Can you also, Jens, comment on that? I mean, you are an expert, you are an author around, this industry and startups and innovation. I mean, how do you see Israel? I mean, you were part of our FoodTech workshops, and you met with lots of startups all around the world and also in Israel. What do you think makes, us special?
Well, first of all, I have to add that around about $1 billion was invested in Silicon Valley in food startup last year. So the whole idea can't be wrong, but not just why the American do it, we have to do it. But on the other hand, you have, again, this potential, what you just said, of Startup Nation. You have the knowledge, you have the brain on the tech side. And you have so much tradition in food. What we tasted yesterday was lovely, and we saw this tradition, and people are emotional about food. You can load it up with a lot of emotions. So combining food and tech in this area makes a big potential. And knowing each other and talking tachlis then, and talking which deal we want to make tonight, and not talking like the Germans and the French, we do it tomorrow, or on the other side, we are too much conservative in that, the Germans, or annoying, a bit annoying in that. But I think there's a big potential, and what I was doing and discussing yesterday, bridging it again to Europe, maybe to France, to Germany, and combining that knowledge which is there from food. France has a long tradition in food, even the Germans have some tradition in food, so we can combine that knowledge and again, not only Silicon Valley, we also talked about that, but also look at Asia, what's happening there, and look what is happening in the food industry, and maybe a collaboration between that nations brings you to the highest level in the topic again. So it will be food startup nation then.
Thank you for that. I would like to share, some last final words to thank, of course, all the panelists that were with us today about Agritech and FoodTech Revolution. So Gil again, Finisterre, and Nitsa, Trendlines, and Gil Mondelez, and Adi Agrination, and Jens, author and mentors. And I would like to share with you all something that is also in my mind. Elon Musk's brother said recently that real food is the new internet. So please have a look at it. When you enjoy good food and when you buy food, everything in the value chain, from farm to fork is changing. Think about the big change that is needed. And thank you very much for the panel.
Thank you. Play something for the contest of